Want to know how to build an interior from zero that feels alive in daylight and shines at night? This video is made just for you. Hi everyone, and welcome to this exciting video. In this video, I start by designing a simple floor plan and go all the way through rendering and post-production. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to support the channel. I'll start the design with a rectangle, setting its length to 5 meters and its height to 3 meters. First, I apply explode to it. Using offset, I'll create inner rectangles for the wall details. 2 offsets of 20 centimeters for the sides, and another one of 1 meter. This one's also 1 meter. Then, again, 2 offsets of 20 centimeters. From the top and bottom, I'll add 2 50 centimeters offsets. Now I'll trim the extra lines. These areas will be the spots for the wall carvings. Alright, that's our first wall. I'll make a copy of it. Here, using offset, I'll create the balcony. (2 meters wide and 2.5 meters high. I'll also place another carving right here. As you can see, it's 3 meters. So I'll give 2 40 centimeters offsets from both sides, and 50 centimeters from the bottom. Then I'll trim the extra parts again. Alright, that's how simple designing the walls was. Next, I'll design the ceiling. It'll be 5 by 5 meters. First, I'll give it a 30 centimeters offset. Then a 10 centimeters offset for the cove lighting. And finally a 70 centimeters offset for the center part of the ceiling. To have a general outline, I'll make a copy of this rectangle and give it a 20 centimeters outer offset. Sometimes a bug appears, and it doesn't work properly. So now the 2 walls, ceiling, and floor are ready. The other 2 walls will be blank since they're not visible in the camera view. Now I'll save the file and import it into 3ds Max. Let's continue. I've already set my unit setup to centimeters, since meters and centimeters are the most practical options. In the import menu, I'll bring in the drawing, set the unit to meters, and leave the rest as default. Let's check the measurements. Everything looks correct. I added 2 lines here so I can temporarily hide this wall while working. Now I'll select the lines and start tracing the shapes. Then I'll give them a 3-meter extrusion. For now, I'll change their color to a light gray. I'll separate these 2 walls using detach. Same for these lines. I'll detach them as well. Using effect pivot only, I'll move the pivot to the bottom center. Then rotate it 90 degrees and place it in position. I'll repeat the same process for the remaining lines. Next, let's make the 3D ceiling. I'll draw another line and use outline with 30 centimeters. So it matches the previous line. Then I'll draw one more and give it an outline of 70 centimeters. Now I'll extrude both by 15 centimeters. I'll color them gray as well. For the center part, I'll use a plane. And apply the floor generator modifier. I'll set it to hexagon mode and set the radius to 36 centimeters. To remove the gaps, I'll tweak some of the settings. For the floor, I'll also use a plane and floor generator. I'll change the pattern to look like parquet flooring. Then I'll scale it up a bit, and later I'll cut the extra parts using quick slice. I'll slightly reduce its height. Then rotate the ceiling 180 degrees and place it in the correct position. Now I'll import a carved wall model into the scene. It's in. Let's adjust its size. I'll select the carving and this line, hiding the rest. Then I'll attach all the parts together. And use vertices to tweak the proportions. I'll center this middle carving perfectly, and place it in position. Then I'll make a copy for the other side. And another larger one for the center. I'll copy that again for the opposite wall and position it properly. Alright, great. Now I'll create a box this size and use Pro Boolean. I'll also add the camera, and later adjust its angle. Next, I'll bring in a few 3D models, a TV, carpet, sofa, and curtains, then continue the video. Everything's imported now, so let's place them. Starting with the TV, I'll put it in the center of this carved wall. Then place the rest of the objects. Everything's set up now. I already added the curtains, balcony door, and ceiling lights earlier. Let's unhide everything. I'll also create a main ceiling. Give it a gray color, and position it. The modeling and design are now complete. Next, we'll move on to the day and night renders. So stay with me. I also added the chandelier so the ceiling doesn't look empty. This light here is just to brighten up the scene a bit, and you can see the settings I used. The light source isn't visible and it doesn't affect the reflections. It doesn't interact with anything, it just slightly brightens the room. I also modeled a small balcony. In this shot, the sunlight isn't enough, so I added 2 extra lights inside the living room to balance the interior brightness. Let's jump into the camera. Alright, let's review the materials. Starting with the wall, I added a corona out to the diffuse, and a small-scale noise map for the bump. This is the material for the center part of the ceiling. The reflection settings are similar to the wall material. This one is the parquet material, where I used multimap to randomize 5 different bitmaps within one material. Take a close look at the adjustments I made. This material is for the wall moldings. It's a bit different from the ceiling center material. These 2 are for the balcony railings and the balcony floor. The black material is for the railings. For the balcony floor, I used a tiles map, and you can also see the adjustments I made to it. And the last one here is the HDRI material. Alright, now let's add the render elements. The ones I'll add are direct, reflect, refract, mask ID, 2 CTEX maps, and Z-depth. I don't need anything else. For the Z-depth, I'll set the depth distance. 1000 centimeters. 10 meters should be enough. I'll place this one on Material ID. For the 2 CTEX maps, I'll create 2 Corona AU maps. one with 1 centimeter and the other with 10 centimeters. Both of them should be set to outside only. Then I connect them like this, and rename them properly so nothing gets mixed up. In the Camera tab, I increased the exposure and the contrast, and added a curve. Make sure denoising is enabled. I also set the output resolution, and now we can start the render. To keep this video from getting too long, I'll pause here and continue once the render is finished. Alright, the render is done. You can do some post-production here in the Corona VFB, but Photoshop gives you way more control. Exposure helps manage the brightness. White balance adjusts how warm or cool the image is. Contrast and curves are self-explanatory. I'll save both the render and the render elements and bring everything into Photoshop. Stay with me. I imported the render and all the render elements. First, I'll make a copy of the original render for comparison, and move it to the bottom. Now I'll turn off all the layers one by one. This is the direct pass, which shows the diffuse of each material clearly. This one is the reflection pass. This one is refraction, which shows materials light passes through. Z-depth shows the depth of field. Mask ID helps with selections. And these C-text maps enhance the micro details. Alright, let's start. This layer definitely needs to be set to multiply. With opacity around 60%. This one also goes to multiply. And opacity 40% works well. For the Z-depth layer, I'll test a few blending modes. Soft light looks best. Opacity around 40%. Now the reflection layer. This one should definitely be set to screen. You can see the difference clearly in the chandelier. Opacity goes to 70%. I'll add a mask to it. Select the brush, and reduce some of the dark areas, especially over this glass part to make it clearer. Turning on the refraction layer. Again setting it to screen. Opacity 70%. And the last layer, the direct pass. Opacity 20%. Let's check a comparison. Looking good. Now I'll add a curve for the whole image. And a levels adjustment to control the lighting. Then some brightness and contrast. This looks good. Comparing again. Much better. Now I'll bring in a character. I'll place him right here and scale him down. His feet need to be hidden behind the table. So I'll select the table in the Mask ID layer. Then I click on the character layer and add a mask. Perfect. Now I'll create a new layer under the character and paint some shadows using a black brush. Then I'll brighten the brush a bit and paint some light on the wall. I'll also add a bit around the couch cushion so the window light feels more natural. Then I lower the opacity. On another layer, I'll darken the areas closer to the character. Lowering the opacity again. In the Adjustments panel, I'll add a Levels layer to increase the contrast a bit. Looks better now. I need to darken this boot. So I'll select it. Darken it completely. and then reduce the opacity to balance it. Now I'll duplicate the character to create his reflection on the table. Flip it vertically, rotate slightly, and position it correctly. I'll turn on the selection layer, select the table again, and apply a mask to the reflection. Now I'll remove the extra parts with a black brush on the mask. And adjust the opacity. From a distance it looks nice. Maybe I'll lower the opacity even more. Let's compare again. Much better. I'll tweak a few details. I think the levels need adjustment again. The old one is too bright. I'll disable it and add a new levels layer. Much better. Amazing. Final comparison shows the improvement clearly. This is just a small portion of what post-production can really do. I added a curtain to the scene. This light is used to brighten the chandelier, and I set it to a two-sided mode so the light works even though the source itself isn't visible. This is the main light, and its settings are basically the same as the chandelier light. For these lights, I applied IES profiles to give them pattern fall-off. And this area is the ceiling cove lighting. Next, I darkened the HDRI to match a nighttime mood, and I disabled the sun. For the chandelier material, which is a corona light material, I re-enabled the emitter. This is the HDRI I used. I darkened the sky in Photoshop and lowered its brightness using color correction to give it a nighttime look. All the other materials are the same as before. Those were the main changes I made for the night render. In the Render Elements section, I'm adding 2 light select passes. One for the 2 main lights in the scene. These 3 elements were a mistake, so I'm deleting them. The next light select will be for the IES lights on the wall. I switch the mode to Light to avoid selecting the wrong element. Everything looks fine. I only changed the contrast from 2 to 2.5, and denoising is enabled. I set the resolution properly and start the render. The render looks good so far. I'll stop the recording and continue once the render finishes. Alright, the render looks nice, but post-production will make it even better. Let's quickly check the render elements. This is the light select for the main lights. And this one is for the IES lights. Great, I'll bring everything into Photoshop. Stay with me. As always, I duplicate the main render for comparison. Move the duplicate to the bottom. Turn everything off. And start from the bottom layer upward. I set the C-Text map layer to multiply. Lower the opacity to 70%. And add a mask. I'll explain why in a moment. The next C-Text map also goes to multiply with opacity at 40%. And I mask this one too. I set the first light select to screen and reduce the opacity. The next light select also goes to screen. But with very low opacity for now. Later I'll use it for fine-tuning the brightness. I set the Z depth layer to soft light. Actually, my mistake. I clicked the wrong layer. I'll turn it off for now in case I need it later. The refract layer goes on screen with lower opacity. And the reflect layer is set the same way. The direct layer goes to soft light. And I reduce its opacity a little. Back to the light select. I increase its opacity a bit. Now for the masks on the C-Tex map layers. I want to brighten the cove lighting. So using a black brush on the mask, I paint over that area. It was still too dark. Removing the selection works better. Perfect. Let me do a quick comparison. Now I add a global levels adjustment to control the overall brightness. A brightness contrast adjustment too. That improved it slightly. But the direct layer has some problems. Because it's on soft light, the walls and ceiling look good, but the furniture, cushions, and table lose detail. So I need to mask out those areas. I select the sofa, rug, and part of the plants. Invert the selection. Go back to the direct layer, and add a mask. Much better. I also increase the opacity slightly. Next, I create a new layer to add halation and glow using special light brushes. Let me find a good brush. I pick a color directly from the scene and paint over all the downlights. Then I use another brush to add a glow effect. Great, let's compare again. I lower the opacity of the highlight layers a bit. The difference is very clear. I'll adjust levels and contrast one more time. Now I want to add a human character to the scene. Here's the character. I'll place him on the sofa. Looks good. I select the sofa using the Light Select pass. Hide the character. Add the other parts of the sofa to the selection. Remove extra parts. Invert the selection. And apply a mask to the character. Now I create a new layer for shadows. The light source is coming from the right, so the upper parts of the character shouldn't cast heavy shadows, but since he's wearing black, darkening some areas works well. Using a black brush, I paint shadows where needed. Under the legs, under the shoes, and then lower the opacity. I add a mask to this shadow layer and clean up the extra parts. I make one more layer because the foot area needs stronger darkening, and I lower the opacity. Another layer for slight highlights on the head. I sample a color from the scene and paint lightly behind the head. Then lower the opacity. I darken the front of the face a bit, but it didn't look good, so I removed it. Now I adjust the light on the clothes, especially the pants. Much better. With the levels adjustment, I fine-tune the brightness and color. Time for the final comparison. The difference is very noticeable. There are so many creative things you can do during post-production. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this style of content, please leave a comment. Your feedback really helps. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really supports me and the channel. See you in the next video. Goodbye.